Thank you all for coming. It's so great to see some retired teachers here. Okay. We always welcome new members. We have membership forms at both tables. Our speaker tonight needs no introduction since you know him from educating our children for so many years. But a little bit about his background. Lou is originally from Red Bank in Monmouth County, graduate of the College of New Jersey in Trenton, master's degree from Newark State College, today's Keene University. His teaching career began in 1965. He came to Egg Harbor Township in 1970, becoming principal in 1976. He retired in 2009. He was an adjunct instructor at Stockton University from 2009 to 2020. He has been on the EHT Board of Education since 2010 and president today of the Board of Education. Lou has touched so many of our children's lives, being teacher and principal in the township schools, and he would like to share some thoughts of the small outlying schools, and he will welcome your memories as well. And a special thank you to Lee Portnoy for putting together the PowerPoint tonight. Please welcome Lou Delabarca.
Thank you, Lynn Wood. Only known Lynn for many, many years also. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the warm introduction. The thrill of my life has been working in Egg Harbor Township Schools for all those years, so I really appreciate it. It's great to see so many of you who I've known over the years. Welcome to what I hope will be a conversation about the history of the outlying schools in Egg Harbor Township and even more. We have a video to share that was made a few years ago about the history of our schools. We also will share many pictures of the schools showing students, teachers, and others through the years. These were researched by our society's historian, Lynn Wood. Why am I here? I'll share a little bit about me and my time with the outlying schools, and I'm sure I'll have commentary about the schools as we proceed. Just a brief background as to how I became involved with the outlying schools. I began my teaching career in 1965 at the River Plaza School in Middletown, Monmouth County. I taught 6th grade there for 5 years. In 1970, I was getting married to Kay, who was teaching at Ocean City High School. She really didn't want to give up that great job. And I was getting my master's degree and getting certified to be an elementary school principal, so I thought I could move. I interviewed at EHT with Superintendent Mr. Sam Pleviak. Anybody remember? I know Mrs. Webb does. Mr. Pleviak, who offered me a position teaching 4th grade at the Swift School. That was the year that Sleigh Ball School was opening with 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. I was hired the same night that Mr. Tom Smith was hired to be the Sleigh Ball principal. Remember that name? After 2 years at Swift, Mr. Smith, then the superintendent, moved me to lead teacher at the Bargaintown School. He moved Mr. Enslin, remember that name, who was at Bargaintown, to the Swift School. After a few years at Bargaintown, Mr. Smith took a leave for a year, and Mr. Tom Cook became acting superintendent. I was made acting principal for the outlying schools. Mr. Cook was principal of all the outlying schools. He became acting superintendent. They made me acting principal. And then Mr. Fred Nichols was acting principal at the Sleigh Ball School, and the three of us called ourselves the Thespians. Our county superintendent, remember who was at that time? Vince Cantilla, told Mr. Smith that one principal for the 8 schools wasn't sufficient. So the 8 schools were divided between myself and Mr. Cook. I had the South Elementary Schools and Mr. Tom Cook had the North Elementary Schools. Some of you are shaking your heads, remember those days? These became the North and South Elementary School, and Mr. Cook and I had our office at the Sleigh Ball School for a couple of years. Then, at that time, let me get here. At that time, the South Elementary School was Bargaintown, Scullville, Cardiff, and Steelmanville. And the teachers involved were, I was the lead teacher at Bargaintown. Mrs. Reinheimer, Edith Reinheimer, was the lead teacher at Skullville. Mrs. McGuire was the lead teacher at Cardiff. And Mrs. Hopkins was the lead teacher at Steelmanville. In the North Elementary, Mrs. Oatman was the lead teacher at Farmington School. Mr. Enslin was the lead teacher at the Academy School, which they opened about 1976. Let me think. Mrs. Henderson was the lead teacher at McKee City School, and Miss Percano, who's right here, was the lead teacher at West Atlantic City School. So that's how they divided up the 8 buildings, and Mr. Cook and I traveled amongst those buildings over the course of each day. And in those days, we got paid for our mileage. So it was kind of an interesting little extra that we had. Let me see. My first secretary of the district was Kathy Lowry. Many of you may remember Kathy. She started with me in August of 1977 when the South Elementary schools were opening. And Mr. Cook's secretary was Nancy Cull for the North Elementary. What I'm trying to do is I'm going to be throwing names out and hoping I can stir up some memories. And as we proceed through the program, hopefully you'll say something, because I want this to be conversation, all right? Let's see. Mr. Cook became assistant superintendent. Barry Levine, everybody remember Mr. Levine? Took his place in the North Elementary schools, and we moved to Bargaintown. Barry was actually in the Chelsea Park School in Linwood. I don't know if you remember that. For a period of time, we located his office in the Linwood School District, which was quite interesting. Let's see if I have that. All right. Kathy moved to the superintendent's office, and Betty Savage became my secretary. And then Kathy came back to Bargaintown in 1989 with Tom and Linda Peterson, and we all joined together in the basement of the Bargaintown School. In 1992, we went to Swift, meaning Kathy and I, and Tom and Linda went to Slayball. So here's some other notes. The old Bargaintown School, some of you may remember some of this, was actually the Farmer's Grange at one time, and then it was actually Township Hall. Remember, some of you remember that, before we have our current Township Hall. The Academy School opened around 1974. Because of the housing boom, we needed larger schools, and Alder Avenue Intermediate and Fernwood Avenue Middle Schools were opened around 1992, I think. I'm trying to pick my memory also here. The Outlying schools closed in 92 when those buildings opened. And since then, of course, we've had the large schools that we're enjoying nowadays. All right, let's put our heads together. We're going to try to remember those great schools, great teachers, great kids, great families, and great memories, and we're going to enjoy a video showing some of the history of our schools.
Egg Harbor Township, as we know it today, didn't always look this way. It's hard to imagine a place that did not have storybook land or the Black Horse Pike. In fact, there wasn't a single car on the road when the township was first incorporated in 1798. Census records indicate the population of Egg Harbor Township back in the year 1810 was 1,830 residents, just a fraction of the nearly 50,000 people who call EHT home today. And back then, the heart of Atlantic County municipality was divided into much smaller finger communities with names like Cardiff, McKee City, Steelmanville, Farmington, and West Atlantic City. If you look around, you may still see remnants of these places right in your backyard. As much as we've seen the face of the township change, you can imagine that schools were also very different. Long before the primary school buildings were constructed, there were many smaller schoolhouses scattered throughout the area. In fact, years ago, township schools weren't even housed in school buildings at all. During those years, students would only attend school a few days a year. But did you know some of the original EHT schools are still around today? Have you ever seen this building? Or this one? This building here was once known as the Bargaintown School. According to records from 1914, the building cost just $14,500 to build, and it is still in use today. And of course, there are some schools in the township you probably know very well. Let's take a visit back in time as we listen to stories from people who were educated in the EHT schools and those who have served as district leaders over the years. Their stories will enlighten us on how the early schools have evolved into the district that we now recognize for embracing, engaging, and educating the students of today.
Old Egg Harbor Road was the borderline on one end of the township to the Absecon line. That became Farmington area, and Old Egg Harbor Road is where you now have the Walmart store. And I used to ride my bike all the way to Farmington for 4-H and any other activity that I went to after school. And we grew up in a mixed neighborhood on Old Egg Harbor Road, and we played with the kids in the neighborhood, and they played in our house and their house.
It was the beginning of integration of the school system. You know, nobody thinks anything about it today.
The school bus we got on together, and it was a mixed bag as to where you sat. You just got wherever you wanted a seat. But when you got to school, the bus would stop on the one side of the school and discharge the black students. Then it would pull up another 80 feet to the other side of the school and discharge the white students. And
the schools became basically integrated on a very small level.
Because when I got to Cardiff, I just got there for the 8th grade only, but I joined what their 8th grade was, and their 8th grade was made up of about 10 other students, and we were black and white.
And I went to Bargaintown School as kindergarten and stayed there all the way up until the 6th grade. And you would get off the bus and line up. Teacher would be out there, make sure you stood in line until they were ready to let you in.
We probably averaged 6 to 8 students in the grade, and then even up to 10 in most of the grades. And of course, the grades were from 1st to 4th grade in one room in Farmington, and that was taught by one teacher. And then it was 5th to 8th grade in the other room, and that was taught by another teacher.
And then you'd go in, they had coat rooms where you'd hang your coat and lunch that you were maybe taking, because they didn't have a full-time, cafeteria like you have now.
You were in a row in most cases, and the teachers were assigning your studies to the row based on the grade you were in.
Well, I can remember in the McKee City School, we had kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and they were only one classroom that I recall. There were probably about, I'd say, 30 kids in a classroom.
The teacher would have prepared lessons, usually on the chalkboard. Sometimes you were called up to the board to do the answers.
In McKee City School, in the basement, I can remember, is where we would eat lunch, and there was like a little stage there that we performed on that our parents could come and see, no differently than like today.
After you finished your lunch in the cafeteria, you could go out on the playground and play for that half hour.
So we had good teachers, and when we went to recess, we played baseball. They had a slide, they had seesaws, You just participated in whatever you wished to do for that period of time.
Then you came back and started your schoolwork again. You know, line up again, go catch the bus and go home.
You never forget where you grew up, and that's one important thing I was able to carry on.
The best part of those schools is that we knew everybody. All the teachers knew all the kids and all the families. When I came to Egg Harbor Township, it was a real small farming community. I can remember almost getting lost trying to ride around the town. And then I've seen it grow, of course, because in those days it was just the Outlying schools and Swift.
Exactly. When we got to Russell Swift, that was a big change for us because that's when we rotated classes. We used to have Spring Mart in Russell Swift. Back then it was like the volunteer fire company could come and they would start a fire and they would put out the fire at the Spring Mart, and there were games to play.
I started in 1970. It was when the opening of Slayball School was happening and they were hiring additional staff to supply the new building, and they rearranged the district with fourth grade in a portable classroom, which was like the penthouse of the district. It had air conditioning, we had our own bathrooms, it was carpeted, it was a big room. Mr. Tom Cook was principal. He grouped reading classes and math classes, and we changed classrooms for reading and math, so which was way ahead of the time in those days.
When I started in 1975, the school district in 1975 was in a building project. They were building the Davenport Elementary School. And at that time, Slayball had grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. In January of 1976, the Davenport School opened. So at that time, there were classes that moved from all throughout Egg Harbor Township District. They moved over to the Davenport School. And then the Davenport School at that time was started for the first time with a kindergarten wing. Then the remainder of the school was grades 3, 4, 5, and 6.
When this building opened, the Davenport School opened, they had a big opening ceremony, and the guest speaker was Vincent Cantillon, who was the county superintendent of schools. And Mr. Cantillon made the comment and his remarks that Egg Harbor Township should have its own high school. And that got people buzzing.
Building Egg Harbor Township as its own identity was, I think, one of the reasons why the referendum passed.
In 1979, if I remember correctly, the school board at the time picked a principal for the high school, and the high school wasn't even built yet.
I didn't know it at the time, but there was 126 applicants for the position. I was the successful candidate and became the first principal of Egg Harbor Township.
I was against, why are you paying somebody so much money and they're not even going to have a job? Not realizing what that principal had to do before the school was built.
But you have to realize that there was absolutely nothing here. Not only was there a new building, but there was no supplies, there was no faculty.
He had to set all the classrooms up. He had to make sure everything was fine for the teachers and cafeteria and grounds and sport. He had a lot of work to do.
There was no Egg Harbor Township zip code. Your mail went to Summers Point, Linwood, Mays Landing, Pleasantville, and you should see the circus of the mail that went between Greater Egg Harbor Township, and Egg Harbor City. The mail, sometimes you didn't get it for 3 weeks because it went to 3 other post offices before you got here. We had to go through the debate as to whether or not we were going to open in mid-year or we were going to open up the following September. And taking in consideration that the students were already in the high school settings that they were in, that we decided it was best not to disrupt not only the Egg Harbor Township students, but the students at Greater Egg Harbor Regional, because the students at that point, some were attending Oak Crest High School, some were attending Absegami.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. You know, the school district did a great job of allowing students to be a part of the process. So I can remember being asked to vote on the school colors. And I still remember it was between the black and silver and white versus purple and white versus green and yellow, looking at mascots and being asked to vote on the mascots. So they kind of kept us engaged as the school was being built. And even though we were separated by the different school structures that existed, a lot of us grew up together, and it was a small community back then.
And we withdrew from Absegami and Oak Crest and opened up our high school in 1983.
I'm going to say there was approximately 1,100 students at that time. The building was constructed for approximately 1,200 students. Now, the first ever high school was pretty luxurious for buildings, considering that we had a 6-lane Olympic-sized swimming pool. We had some very, very nice amenities, brand new athletic fields. Nobody really had a true impact in terms of what casino gaming was going to do for us.
Well, while some people were still eating breakfast this morning, it all happened. The gambling casino here in Atlantic City opened.
As an assistant superintendent and superintendent, my greatest challenge was functional capacity, creating enough buildings for students that were coming into the district. Now, in the heyday of the casino industry, we were getting upwards of 300 and 350 new students every year.
And people were just coming in from other states and moving into town. We had to really stop and think of, what are we going to do here?
All the schools were crowded, but some were, highly overcrowded.
And that's when we were planning the Fernwood and the Alder Avenue schools. Before we put a shovel into the ground, we had to choose sites where we could put the new schools. And the Board of Education owned land, but it was what they would call landlocked. Fernwood Avenue School was an example. Fernwood Avenue existed, but it was a dead-end street.
Out in the woods, that was all woods. And the road out that way was just dirt road.
And it was, I can still remember today, Freddie Nichols, who was the superintendent.
And he says, this is where we need to build it. So we had to go out towards past the swamp and get to the thing. We got the truck stuck, I broke his mirrors, and we had a good time.
But you could hardly imagine it because it was nothing but a forest. And we were doing two schools at the same time. We were building the Fernwood Avenue School on that site, and then we were building the Alder Avenue School on the site.
Mr. Nichols was superintendent at the time. He decided that we were going to open the buildings. That was a weekend. And he decided to have the bus drivers, the school buses, the staff, the administration, all come in on the Friday after school closed at sleigh ball, remove all the furniture and put it in the school buses, and move the furniture to the new buildings of Fernwood Avenue and then Alder Avenue. And we left the furniture off the buses into the buildings, and it was wonderful. And by the end of that weekend, Monday morning, those schools opened.
And teachers were great at the time. Everybody jumped in. I think we worked 12, 14-hour days just moving stuff from classroom to classroom, getting all the material so we could start school on Monday, and the students didn't see a change other than that nobody knew where they were going when they got to the school.
At the same time, the state told us we had closed outlying schools. The outlying schools did not provide a thorough and efficient education. They had no libraries, they had no gymnasiums.
And then a couple years later, then we had to make all switches again.
We were growing so quickly that we just couldn't keep up with it. So as soon as they passed, a referendum to build, the population exceeded it. So without having physical space, the district had to go to non-traditional spaces. So you could go to almost every facility in the district and find a modular building or a trailer that was erected so we'd have a place to put students.
We had a boardwalk at the high school. You walked out. There were, 5, 6 different buildings there with 2 classrooms in each one.
That you had to leave, go outside in the rain, the snow, the cold, to walk over to your classroom to get into it.
If we go into the cafeteria at that time, the floors were dirt. There were bobcats driving. The ceilings were gutted. There was no electricity. Looked like a war zone.
For the high school, because that was growing the biggest, there had to be a tent outside and hold lunches in that. We had to build another school, then we had to change all the schools around again for Miller.
Caused our growth. That's why we built the Slade Ball and Davenport primary buildings. That's why the Miller School got built. We were growing.
Within a year or so, we were already at max capacity and starting to outgrow that construction project, hence the need for another construction project.
The debate was, are we putting a third addition on, or are we building a second high school? All of a sudden you spend so much time building up this pride and this identity in Egg Harbor Township High School, and now you're going to try to do it all over again with Egg Harbor Township South, North, East, or West, or whatever it's going to be. So the decision was made at that point in time, let's go for a larger Group 4 high school. We're going to house 3,000.
The community supported the opportunity to build new structures, and one of the best days was when we started tearing down those modular buildings in our schools and putting kids back into their regular learning facilities. To start shifting our thinking from just this survival mindset of how do we fit everyone to what are we going to do with everyone. And so that's where the academies came into play. That's where different programs and materials started to happen. So where we started to think more about differentiating instruction and individualizing the program for students as opposed to providing a one-size-fits-all.
What does school spirit look like in EHT? Well, it looks a little something like this.
And the fact that with all that growth, we were blending in lots of new people and perspectives to the community. And so there was the community that existed for decades, if not centuries, and now there were half of that community were completely new to Egg Harbor Township, and trying to make everyone feel part of the school community and part of the Egg Harbor Township schools, I think, was the biggest challenge.
When I was going through the school, the K through 12 system, when I started around like 2006-07 and all the way till now, it was a very diverse and very multicultural population. Like I had friends from all over the place.
This is the real world. This is a taste of cultures from all over the place. Over 50 languages that were spoken in the district. The difference now is I think we're more culturally responsive to the needs of all, and we've made strides to meet those needs.
We actually have like so much more than a lot of my friends have in terms of the amount of AP classes, the amount of clubs, sports. It can always be better. Of course, it can always be better, but compared to a lot of other schools, I think we actually do have a lot of opportunities for students, especially with the academies, and there's constantly new things being introduced, so there's always like new opportunities for students.
I think that's something that EHT teachers do really well, is they understand that the landscape of education is shifting, and so they have to shift and adapt their teaching to be more relatable and be able to connect with all the students of today's generation.
And so an organization, we're in a great, beautiful building, and it's bricks and mortar, and it is what it is. But without people, things don't happen.
Just everything is so completely different that you could never have imagined back then that this would be the schools of today.
But it was an evolution over a number of years that brought it to where it is now.
What I think EHT did really well was building this sense of community. I did feel part of a community here.
Now I want to make sure people feel it, live it, and realize it. To have the same eagle, to have the same colors on their sports team.
The spirit is the same, the feel is the same, and the fact that this is Egg Harbor Township, we are the Eagles, and black and silver is where we are.
Did that stir some memories? I think it's really a very good summary of the history of the district. So, any comments about what you just saw? Any reactions, comments? Leanna Mullen's here. Dr. Mullen is the young lady who produced that entire video. Stand up and say hi, because you did a great job. She talked me into doing it at the time. And our superintendent of schools, Dr. Guccio, is here, so thank you for being with us. Let's see. Board members, Mr. Chad Byers is here, Board of Education. Mrs. Juanita Hyman is here, and Mr. Dick Seppi is here. I think that's it. Egg Harbor Township Vice Mayor, is that their Deputy Mayor? No vice involved, right? Mr. Ray Ellis is here. We appreciate that. Thank you. When I see Swift School anytime, who do I think of? Mrs. Webb, because that was her dad, right? Mr. Swift was Mrs. Eleanor Webb's father, and Mrs. Webb taught at Sculver School many years. What we're going to do at this time, yes, Mr. Ellis, please, I want you to talk, folks.
Real quick, I enjoyed that because I remember my sister was the first black teacher in Egg Harbor Township.
Anybody remember?
That's Price.
Debbie Price.
Right, was one first. And everybody said, well, why don't you teach in Atlantic City? Why don't you teach here? Why are you going to Egg Harbor Township? She said, that's because that's where I want to be. And she had a great time here. And I'll never forget the little Spruce Avenue schools I used to go visit when she was at work and stuff like that. She loved this district.
Yeah. That was great. Former board president Doris Dilley's here, I just remembered. And board member. And Janice Cameron, do you remember yourself in that video? Janice, member of the Historical Society Board of Directors. Mrs. Lee Portnoy did a lot of work for us tonight, so I don't want to forget to thank her. She's going to put together the slideshow, and we're going to share. As the show goes on, you're going to see some old pictures of some of the schools and different things and different people, and I want you to comment on some of them. So if you have anything you'd like to say, either raise your hand. I'm playing Phil Donahue. Anybody know that? And I'll be trying to get you to the mic, but there's some great pictures that you're going to see from previous years in the township. Anybody recognize? Yeah. This is the Cardiff School before the addition that most of you remember when you think of Cardiff nowadays, the original building. How we transported, go ahead, Kathy.
I was going to say in the Barkintown school picture, my husband's great-grandfather was the school custodian for 50 years of Barbertown School.
What was his name?
His name was Gus Brower.
I have to mention her husband because he was one of my favorite students when I taught second grade at Barbertown School.
Just to clarify, I was not his student, or I would have been one of his favorites.
Thank you. Well, you were ahead.
I was.
Yes.
2 years.
2 years. Danny Clayton, great person. I didn't get to say hi to you. Hi, how are you? Go ahead.
2 comments. One is about Cardiff School. I have a picture of students at Cardiff School. My father and his sisters were in the picture from, I think, 1921. And Bill Sturck, who was the former Egg Harbor Township treasurer, is in that picture also. So I'll make that available. I also went to Cardiff School myself. And the other thing I want to mention about Bargentown School, where I went there, also, I was so impressed with Bargentown School because they had cooks preparing the lunches, and they were fabulous. I remember we had fish, and we had chocolate cake, and it was homemade food, and it was wonderful.
They spoiled you guys, actually. Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's see. Moving on. All right, you know what this was? It was a county bookmobile that the county used to provide at that time. Now, I'm going to mention this. Mr. McNeil's going to say something, I hope. Do you remember that we had our own township bookmobile at one time? And Mr. McNeil, Jeff McNeil, designed the interior of that and built it, I think, too, Jeff, did you? Oh, you designed it?
We had maintenance people that did that construction.
But you designed it?
I designed the bookmobile design.
Right.
That was fun. I can still pick.
It provided books to our kids in those outlying schools at the time. All right, moving on. That is Bargentown School. Oh, you can pass that one on, please. Anybody remember those banners, though, that we did for the kids? You still have banners? Yeah. In those days.
Very early stage, very early.
Very thin there, like the old
That is Township Hall, which was originally a Bargentown school, and it became Township Hall as time went on, and of course that was demolished. Anybody recognize Mrs. Debbie Smith, Mrs. Lynn Miller? I believe that's Mr. Galvin there in the middle.
Lou, I have another comment.
Please, go ahead. I'm glad. I'm so happy people have comments.
I was in Miss Lafferty's first class.
Well, and if you knew Lynn, yes, Lynn Lafferty Lynn Miller passed away a few months ago. Great teacher. And Debbie Smith took my position when I became principal, and she became the teacher at Bargentown. All right, look at Stillmanville, early school early. And that's what the building looks like. Anybody know what Stillmanville's doing now? It's a home, great. Linwood had the opportunity to tour the building inside.
Many things he did to keep the history of the school alive. I invited him here tonight, Tom Resch. I don't know if he's here today. I don't think. Oh, Tom! Yeah. I love how you kept the blackboards and you made them your kitchen countertops, yes? And you gave your little boy chalk so he could draw. It's such a cool idea. Yeah, we'd love to share your thoughts.
Great building. I was principal there for several years with Mrs. Hopkins. Who was the other teachers who taught at Stillmanville? Mrs. Trulin was there before Mrs. Hopkins. Mrs. Trulin and her husband were great dancers. If any of you remember going to the end of the year teachers' dinners, Mrs. Trulin and her husband did dance the whole night away while they were there. Big popular thing that Mrs. Hopkins did was that Mother's Day tea every year. The children on the playground.
We thought this was a fun day, correct?
One of the fun day programs is what we had in our heads at the time. We were putting this together. Anybody recognize any of these moms? Because we didn't know them. It must have been one of the programs where they were chaperoning. All right. If you recognize yourself, let us know. Did we determine where this was?
Stillmanville School.
Which one?
Stillmanville.
Oh, this was Stillmanville. You Recognize that, sir? Steelmanville in the old days. That's the back of the building. Skullville High School. I believe that's on Uncle Dick's property? Or where the, what is it now? Yeah, over there. Green trees. Skullville School does not look like that today. If any of you ride by, it's kind of disappointing what it looks like right now. Oh, Mrs. Webb, there you are. 1970. You were 15, I think, at the time. Years old, right? Okay, Carol Crusoe is here. Carol, I, Eleanor Webb, Mrs. Reinheimer, Miss Nichols. Carol, raise your hand. There's Carol Crusoe, yay. Mrs. Reinheimer and Miss Nichols were sisters. I don't know if you remember that. Yes, at the time. That was bicentennial year. And they had me chairing the program, or speaking at least. Who is that dark-haired guy? Yeah. Oh, there he is again. Eleanor, there we are. We look pretty good, Eleanor, aren't we? Yes, Mrs. Caruso, would you like to share your comments about this? Do you remember?
Hold it close to your mouth. I can't remember what it was that we said now. To the president, yeah.
And that was his thank you. And we still have it. Great project at the time, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. Anybody recognize anybody?
Flag Day.
Yes?
She said Flag Day.
Flag Day, okay, wonderful. Okay.
What was that? Somebody said they thought there were Girl Scout meetings at the school. Yeah.
They probably were, right, at that time? Sure, sure. Okay. That might have been the bicentennial again? Or end of the year program?
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day, something like that, some holiday. Anybody recognize anybody? This thing here, you might get this on the easy. Oh, God, what am I? Do you recognize the young lady? Forget the guy. That's Tony Ann Gazandi, right? And Tony Ann Puglisi. Tony Ann, the story, notice I'm wearing a tag that says Annie. Tony Ann starred Annie as Molly. And when she was in kindergarten at Steelmanville, her mom came to me at the end of May and said, I need to have a couple of weeks off from school at the end of the year because Tony Ann's filming the end of the movie Annie at Monmouth College, which is, if you ever remember the movie at the end where they have that circus scene, that's Monmouth University now. So I said, I guess I could excuse her from kindergarten, and I did. And then the next year when the movie came out, we convinced Mr. Smith, at the time was superintendent, to let us take all the children from Skullville, I believe it was to the movie theater in Margate, to see the movie Annie together. And that was what we were doing at that time.
She sang for the Marco Polo event.
Right. She also sang at the opening of the high school. She said the Spangled Banner. Here we are again, Mrs. Webb. I think that's your retirement. I believe that's your retirement dinner. So the old guy's getting a little gray there. Okay. Yeah, so Mr. Nichols announced the closing of Skullville and all of the outlying schools.
That's the last year she lived there.
Right, right. And there's McKee City. Mrs. Henderson was the lead teacher, Ruth Henderson. Any other names? Because I didn't want to try to remember all the teachers' names.
Blanche Lashley.
Mrs. Lashley, who I did know recently. Okay. Yes, who is that young lady? Do you know who that is? In that picture. I don't recognize her. We think that's McKee City, don't we? Lee, was that, we thought that was McKee?
Mrs. McKelvey. Mrs. McKelvey.
Oh, Mrs. McKelvey, who I do not know at all.
And the actual students.
And there's some names you will remember, like John Carbon, Frank Patterson, Robert Warren, familiar township names. Go ahead. Again, there's Cardiff before the addition, and there it is after. Interesting how they did that. Go ahead.
I attended kindergarten at what was called the Cardiff Annex that was behind the church on West Jersey Avenue for AM and PM kindergarten. They had it in this church annex. My teacher was Mrs. Toland.
Mrs. Toland, good memory name. And when did we go to Barkintown School, Mrs. Dilly? When I met you for the first time?
I was there in first grade, and I had Mrs. Grace.
Grace, yes. Excellent teacher also. And Miss Dilly's mom was an outstanding supporter of the school district and worked very hard at the Davenport School when it opened. At the library, I believe. Yes, great. There's Mrs. Reinheimer, when she was at Cardiff. That was Freddie Nichols' aunt, for those of you who may not remember the connection. All right, Mr. Wienander brought his snakes to the children. I remember him doing this also at the Barkintown School that same year, I think. Fun day at Birch Grove Park, we think. I think we used to do that. Barkintown used to do that, if I remember correctly. We'd go to Birch Grove. And our great cooks provided lunch. I have somebody here who might say something about West Atlantic City.
I cried the whole day.
I'll go say that in there.
I cried the whole day that school was demolished.
How many years were you there?
15.
Outstanding. And who was your co-teacher?
My dear friend and colleague, Kathy Weinheimer.
There's pictures you're going to enjoy coming up, I think, at this building. Is this your playground?
It is.
Had a lot of fun. There's Mrs. Reinheimer also, her daughter-in-law at Outlying City. And the pictures Joanne had provided us with these pictures. And there's Miss Mercado.
Yes.
And there she is with Mrs. Reinheimer.
That was our Thanksgiving.
That was our Thanksgiving dinner. Mr. Lane, who was in charge of the cafeteria at that time, called and said, "What would you like for your Thanksgiving treat?" And my dear friend Kathy Weinheimer said, "Ask for 2 turkeys." So I did, and we got the turkeys, and we cooked a Thanksgiving dinner for kindergarten children with no kitchen. The lady next door, Mrs. Gazafava, was an absolute angel. We made the corn muffins. She came and got them, cooked them in her oven, brought them back. She did the same thing with the pumpkin pies, but Kathy Weinheimer and I cooked the turkeys. And we invited Mr. Della Barca
So funny.
to come for the Thanksgiving dinner. But it was a wonderful time.
They were so good at making me look good. I mean, that's a fake picture if you ever want to see it. But that's Miss Janine Dixon, that picture with us, who was our school nurse for many years. What did you say? I'm sorry. They spelled my name wrong. Oh, Janine Dixon's name wrong, yes.
No, that's right.
Yes.
Oh, wait. And
We have
that's
relatives.
yes. The ends are wrong.
But that picture made the newspaper actually with me doing that, which is hysterical at the time. Before I forget, before you leave, folks, take a few minutes to look at the memorabilia on that table over there because it's quite interesting. And lots of pictures I'd never seen before and a lot of fun. All right, here we go. That's inside West Atlantic City, excuse me. Who was Santa? Do you remember that? No. And that's the playground, and look where they were on the water. What a beautiful sight that was for little guys. A lot of fun. And I think, is that our ending of the pictures? All right, there's some people who may want to Al, would you like to make any comment? You went to Bargaintown, and I knew this young man when he was, what, first grade?
Yeah, I consider my experience at Egg Harbor Township the quintessential one. Everything in here is what I experienced. Mrs. Trulin, Mrs. Hopkins at Steelmanville, Mr. Del Barca, Mrs. Lafferty, Ms. Lafferty at the time at Bargaintown. I went the first 3 months to Swift, and then I was the only student in my classroom to go to Davenport. When we changed, so that was a mid-year change. So, you know, I was pleasantly surprised to hear of the Dr. Miller School because she was the principal, and that was a big deal because that was the first time, really for me, I ever heard of, and this is going to sound bad when I say it out loud, I had never heard of a female PhD. Right, with the EDD, yeah, still. And then I tell my kids now, and they think I'm an old fogey. You know, I went to Absegami because I wrestled, they kept me in Absegami. And then, so I went to 3 buildings and 2 high schools and never moved. I was, so they're like, oh, is he going to tell that story again? But yes, I went to the last 2 years of Egg Harbor Township, and the picture of the City Hall with the monument up front, that was my bus stop for 13 years. And so I swore I was going to live long enough to see what was in that thing. And it was all wet papers and stuff like that. But when the new one, when they built the police station, I had something in that time capsule.
So glad you're here. I've not seen this young man in many years, but we used to see your mom more often. I'm glad to see you. Let me say, I want to say, before I totally forget, Mrs. Landgraf is here, and I met Dee at Steelmanville School, and she was my parent club president when her son was there.
I'm trying to remember. I was 9 months pregnant when my son started school there, so I waddled in, and I think they felt sorry for me and said, oh, let her be president. She's not going to be around for much longer anyway. But I had my second son and put him in a backpack and just went into school with him in the backpack. Excellent group of people, great teachers. Oh. Izzard, yes, yeah. But just, it was a wonderful experience, it really was, and it was a good start for my son.
The best part is that we still know each other after all these years and work together. Anybody else that would like to have a comment about our wonderful outlying schools and any of the schools in the district? Marguerite.
Yes. My daughter went to a Zion Methodist church for kindergarten because Davenport wasn't ready at that time. And some people might remember that experience.
Al mentioned about going to Davenport mid-year. I think they arranged the room, the classes, so third graders were set. So when the school opened in January, those third grade classes moved over to Davenport. If I remember, Mr. Gunther was at West Atlantic City or Academy School, and they moved him in January. Am I right, Jeff? My memory there? And that's how when they opened Davenport in the middle of the school year. So it worked. Go ahead. Yes.
Hi. My son went to Bargaintown School for the last 2 years it was open, and he had Donna Hay for his first grade teacher, and then he had Mrs. Tobias for his second grade teacher. And we had a lot of fun at that school. We had something called an egg drop where the kids had to get a raw egg and encompass it in something that they could go upstairs and drop it from the balcony upstairs. And if it broke, you lost. If it didn't, you won. And that was a lot of fun. And I also remember Mr. Klein, our janitor. Everybody loved Mr. Klein. He was wonderful. Yeah, and also Jeff McNeil's the one who did the artwork for our Barbertown t-shirts. We had them as a fundraiser. The kids all got free ones, and then we sold the other ones as a fundraiser to parents and people that wanted the shirt. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Drobel. He does. Oh, I'm sure. That's why I'm so glad he's here. Thanks, Jeff.
I was fortunate enough to have taught in all of the outlying schools, including some of the others. The annex at Zion Methodist was being used at one time. Farmington Firehouse had a 3rd grade class there as well. Bargaintown, yeah. So they were, but when Davenport opened, those 3rd grades all made the transition at that time. But from my experience, I was the traveling art teacher, so I had no home. So my milk crate became my classroom. I would go from room to room, up and down the stairs, you know, the whole bit, building to building, 2 buildings a day. And I kept coming home when I first started working. I kept coming home and I had black soot on me. And Deb's going, my wife's saying, what are you doing? I said, I don't know. So, yeah, so I finally went and I saw one of the janitors and I said, what was here before me? He says, the coal bin, because we had coal heaters. I said, you've got to be kidding me. So I had black soot, and I had it for years until they finally moved, and that was Bargaintown School and Scoville School that had actually a coal bin inside the structure in the basement where the boiler was. So there's a lot of interesting things that had happened in all of these outlying schools over the course, and I was fortunate enough to be in all of them. So.
I used to pack him a lunch, and all these little schools had at least 2 ladies who made homemade lunch for everybody, and they would make extra, and he would eat 2 lunches. He would eat the one I packed, and he would eat the one that they fed him, and they made homemade macaroni and cheese, and Thanksgiving dinner, everything. It was wonderful for the kids to sit and eat together.
One last thing, mentioning the staff, the cooks, the janitors, they were as important as we were as teachers. They were all very dedicated. They took care of their kids like they were their own. If they didn't have, they gave. It was amazing. And when we all moved, when they closed all those little outlying schools, we became one large school at Slayball. And slowly those things disappeared. And at one point, one of our principals wanted a staff picture. And I asked the principal, I said, when you said staff, does that mean the cooks and the janitors? And he said, no, just the teaching staff. I said, I'm not in it. and those cooks meant everything. They took care of everyone. That's right, my first child, they threw the shower. Yeah, so they were down to earth, just real people.
It was, well, not as long as Mr. McNeil. When we moved, when we closed the buildings in '92, if it hadn't been for the bus drivers, we would not have been successful in doing that in 3 days. And it was Friday the 13th when we closed those buildings, but it all worked out and the kids were in on Monday morning. It was
great stuff. And Mr. Nichols planned all that. That was closing. My memory of Jeff, when he was hired, Mr. Tom Cook, well, I have to mention Tom Cook because he was a mentor to me over the years. He went to Glassboro, now Rowan, where Jeff was getting ready to find a job, and Mr. Cook interviewed you, right? And I remember Mr. Cook coming back to the district and saying to me, I got him. I got the greatest guy to be our art teacher. And guess what? Tom Cook knew what he was talking about. So thank you, Jeff. Great memory. Anyone else would like to share with us? Our time is almost up. Oh, go ahead. Oh, Lisa. Lisa Press, one of the members of the Board of Directors of the Historical Society.
Okay. With us here is Doris Dilley. We went to Cardiff Annex. We went all the way through, And then we went to 3 different high school buildings in 4 years. We did the Absegami Oak Crest for freshman and sophomore. Junior year, we were bused up to Galloway Township and then we all came back here and we graduated together. And I will say that our class, everybody remarks how tight our class is, and I think it's because we got bused everywhere. I really do. Oh yeah, well, we were kind of survivors.
What I know about Lisa, they have the greatest reunions all the time, and they get great attendance at your reunions because of that, I think. Yeah. All right. I think that's about all we have time for. Well, go ahead. Oh, yes, it's a reminder for our next, got to push our Historical Society programs. Wednesday, June 4th. Many of you know Mr. Glassy, and he's going to do a whole thing about clamming. Expert. Anyone else want to make a comment before we close off about the outlying schools or any of the schools? Go ahead, Doris.
I'd like to make a comment that I think that this was an absolutely phenomenal event that the Historical Society has put on. It brings back so many good memories with so many pictures and people speaking about their experiences that it really truly warms your heart, because you don't take the time. The world is so busy and we're all going in so many different directions. And to have the opportunity to be able to come together and see pictures and talk about people and teachers and bus drivers and cooks and it's true, it was a true family. It was you left your family at home, but then when you went to school, it was just an extension of the family that you left from home. And I just want to thank the Historical Society for you emceeing it, because it really it warms the heart. So thank you for everyone who came and
My sincere appreciation. Did I leave any Historical Society members out? Carol, hello. She gave a great history of Uncle Dick's a couple of months ago. Did a great job. Thank you. Anyone else on the history? Janice, of course, is here. Okay. Anybody else who would like to comment before we close up? Thank you. Big thank you to Mrs. Lynn Wood for putting all these pictures together. Big thank you to our producer, Lee Portnoy, for helping with all the pictures. Great job. I'm really thrilled to see so many of my old-time friends and students and people here. It makes my, speaking of warming hearts, big time. Mrs. Webb, so great to see you. I'm glad you're doing well. All right, yes, refreshments, please. And thank you, everybody, for being with us. We really appreciate it.